We're live from the MIT Media Lab. Hi, I'm Daz Greenwood, a researcher here, and this is a hangout to provide a little bit more background and context and preview of the upcoming FutureCommerce Hackathon and Symposium, which is an online and in-person event coming up November 20th through 22nd. And with us today is a friend and colleague and great collaborator, Adrian Gropper, who's actually not only going to be pursuing a very cool project, which we're about to hear about, but also has generously agreed to help on the organizing team to help others who have projects. So Adrian, which is an instantly, and I think you may have a window of 20 seconds. Right now, probably the FutureCommerce window. So we're getting some feedback there. Okay, great. So Adrian, yeah, welcome. And perhaps could you introduce yourself? You've got a august reputation, I think, as a patient privacy rights expert and medical doctor and other things with the technology and identity. Maybe you could just introduce yourself and then tell us a bit about the project you're going to be pursuing at the hackathon so people can learn about it and maybe decide if they want to jump on, hack with you.
Hi, hi Daza. Gladly. I'm a career medical device developer, but for about the last 10 years, I've been volunteering as a privacy advocate in health data interoperability. And I've been for a number of years chief technology officer of a nonprofit advocacy group called Patient Privacy Rights. I also do spend a fair amount of time in hackathons around here in the Boston area, and about a year ago won a Stop Ebola hackathon. That's been great fun. So FutureCommerce is a nice combination of interests and things that I do.
Great. So what is the project that that you're going to be pursuing at the hackathon? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. This project is called HIE of One. HIE stands for Health Information Exchange, but the project is not healthcare specific. And it's all about our life being taken over by application programming interfaces, or APIs, which are now everywhere, from your electronic health records, your car, your wearable, and even implants like a cardiac defibrillator. So these APIs share your most personal information via the internet and are typically subject to your consent through a so-called authorization server. The authorization server itself is, in the legal sense, acting as your agent and follows well-established agency law. So here we're sort of starting to talk in terms of business, legal, and technology, or the BLT sandwich that I think you, Daz, originally introduced a number of years ago. I'll go on.
You just got a bit dark there. Did the lights go out?
Yes, it's one of these automatic.
Yeah. Hey, on the good news, we're doing our part for the planet. Conserving energy. Okay, and so now what I think we're about to see is a bit of a metaphor for Adrian's project, which is when he starts talking, the lights go on, and we are illuminated. In this case, the learning opportunities is what I wanted to just draw you out on a little bit. What sorts of things could people learn by working on your project? I think there's some, you said BLT, business, legal, technical. I think that you're working with some very interesting technologies. Maybe we could start with that, it being a hackathon, like in the tokenized, like authorization assertion space. Like maybe people haven't heard of OpenID Connect or UMA or some of these other technologies. Like, talk a little bit about the essence of how it is you want people to be able to express their authorization. What are those technologies? Actually, the other thing is people may want to learn. Some people may already know about it and think, hey, this is a great project for me. So talk about it.
Yes. Well, the technologies are a series of standards. Most of them have something or other to do with something called OAuth, which people are familiar with for many years as the way you connect, say, your Facebook friends list to your New York Times favorite things to read type of thing, or when you do a tweet chat on Twitter, you have two service providers using OAuth or single sign-on and OAuth. OpenID Connect is what's called a profile or an extension on top of OAuth, and it involves single sign-on and authentication of a user. UMA is yet another extension standard on top of OAuth, and it manages authorization. In other words, it's not concerned about who you are so much as in what resource or what data you can access at a particular service provider. And both OAuth and UMA have introduced this concept of an authorization server, which is the policy management point for access to personal resource, to personal data. And so these multiple projects, about 4 of them right now that I'm involved in, including one of them called OpenID Heart, where Heart stands for Health, Relationship, Trust, are all one way or another trying to drive this standard for how you manage access to your personal data online, with the big idea being that you shouldn't have to be awake or signed in when this access happens. So in the same sense that we think of a health information exchange as moving data around for a patient, whether they're aware of it or not, which is not always a good thing from the point of view of the patient, but that's the way the doctors like it. Heart and UMA allow for this kind of consent, prior consent, or policy-based authorization to happen. And what's important also to understand about these standards is that although they're complex, they are also very much internet-oriented. They are new in the sense that they are internet native with tokens and other sophisticated security mechanisms that are much more scalable than the kind of mechanisms that secured interfaces before.
Yeah, and so to me, what I think when I look at how you've formed your project is that much of the complexity is in a sense pushed down to a lower infrastructural level, and what people have to deal with is relatively simple. So most importantly, what patients or people dealing with this, like implementing it, doctors, proxies, perhaps like someone that's your healthcare proxy in your family, would deal with is the equivalent of like clicking a button, where that OAuth scope that you mentioned is the way it looks is that familiar, I'm sure, to most people, button when you are asked, would you like to sign in with Google or log in with Twitter, or would you like to have a copy of your Evernote deposited in your Dropbox, or connect your location with the weather app to get alerts. These types of permissions are frequent. The weather one may not be because of it may be attached to a phone permission and an operating system. But for the most part, these things are based on OAuth 2, as you mentioned. It's this protocol, and it renders invisible most of the complexity that we used to have to deal with when kind of pairwise, one at a time, integrating access controls and authorization procedures, system by system, application by application, sometimes user group by user group across business domains. So now it looks like a button and it just works. Well, that's really good. And to implement it in software is actually not that hard. I have even done it, and I'm not particularly technical, but going to Google, MIT, and other places that support these methods. You kind of download some script and you kind of register it, and it just works. You put the button on your page in your app. So that's good to hear. Now, how about the business and legal part? What is you talk about that?
That's exactly. We'll come back to the consumer-oriented aspects of what's proposed, but yes, you started to talk about the business and in effect the legal part. So all sorts of businesses, including Apple, Google, and Facebook, are eager to serve as your authorization agent because they benefit from access to your personal data. But that benefit also comes at a cost to your privacy and represents a business risk to the hospital or thing manufacturer that would prefer to have a direct relationship with you as the customer. So it is this sort of realization that there is a genuine business incentive on the part of all sorts of internet-connected services that you are buying, in effect, to not necessarily include a middleman or a broker in the middle. That is sort of the founding business thought behind HIE of one. So in other words, we expect that Apple, Google, Facebook will all continue to implement and embed authorization services. In the case of an iPhone, for example, you have the App Store, which is a proprietary example of an authorization service. But the interest of the actual service providers, the hospitals, the wearables manufacturer, whatever, might also support a personal authorization server that does not introduce this leakage of information that's valuable to them and to you to an intermediary. And so that represents the business part. Now, as far as the legal part of this project, of this BLT sandwich, the idea is to have the project represent the simplest possible legal extension beyond what's now in the paper world. So legally speaking, we're using something called agency law, which is kind of the law that applies when you hire a lawyer or an accountant. And maybe, Daza, you could say a little bit about agency law, since you're the one who brought this to my attention.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. So this project is terrific at surfacing fundamental business, legal, and technical dimensions of a idea that to me seems right. So that if you were to address the right issues, the right business issues, the right technical and the right legal issues, not many of them, and kind of align those in the right way, we could actually have an HIE of one. We could start to crack this really otherwise tough problem. The legal, there's so many things that people talk about. It seems very confusing legally when we get into health records and privacy and patient proprietary systems of hospitals and on, and data and on and on. The complex routing and coding and so forth. I think one major, if people get one thing right, it would be reflecting agency law correctly. And what agency law is, as you said, Adrian, it's basically that body of law that deals with the rights and obligations, basically the relationships between people when one person's acting on behalf of another. So you can imagine, you ask a friend of yours to go and buy a car for you, and they agree to do that. They're acting as your agent there. So they're negotiating for you, really. You ask if somebody is like your lawyer, and they're litigating for you, or they're negotiating for you, definitely your agent. And it gets a little bit more subtle in the workplace sometimes. So all of us are agents for our employers. So I suppose I'm an agent for MIT, and I've also been an agent for consulting clients. What it means when you're an agent, or the other side, the person you're agent for is the principal. When you're a principal, you actually have some rights, like that agent should be representing your interests, and should be disclosing material facts to you, not keeping them secret. They should not be cutting side deals that advantage them over you. When you're a principal, you also have some obligations. You need to let people know, third parties, what's the scope of authority of this agent? Like, is Sally authorized to just buy a car, or is she authorized to buy a fleet of cars? Is she authorized to buy like a Corvette or something with a some time travel, like a highly complex, expensive technology? Back to the Future just had its anniversary. Or is she just authorized to get like a used car with a price limit, for example? So and the other major one is, well, is Sally still an agent for me? Like, did she finish this job Tuesday? And as far as I know, she was done. I got my used VW, but then on Thursday she shows up again and buys another car, disappears, parts unknown, and I'm stuck with the bill. So these are some of the contours of what agency law deals with, is being able to, for the principal's perspective, articulate in a reliable way that that people can be can make sure they know what they're in for later, how they can communicate who's their agent and what the scope of authority is, and so third parties can feel comfortable relying on that they'll get paid, or they know who they're dealing with, and the contours and of those authorizations, and that agents also know what their duties are, and what the rules of the road are, when they can get paid, and when maybe they've exceeded their authority. And it's really designed when things go horribly wrong, and there's been a disaster. So it's like, okay, maybe nobody's done anything intentionally, but on the way back, like there was an avalanche, and my used car, or my new car, was crushed. Okay, so am I on the hook for that? Is Sally on the hook for that, because she's the one that decided to go on the mountain pass up to my house? Or is the the car people on the hook for that, because I hadn't been delivered to me yet? I don't know. So like, it really gets down to who's left holding the bag when things go wrong. That's what agency law is really good at. Turns out you can also flip it, and it can be good to help us understand how to structure relationships. It kind of highlights what are the major components that we should talk about up front. It's almost like dating or like starting a business. There's certain things you need to talk about. Alec, who's going to be doing what, and how do you share the good stuff and the bad stuff. So agency law is all about that. And you don't want to kind of dump a whole ocean of agency law on people that aren't lawyers, but selecting 2 or 3 of the right principles can really help to highlight what is the role of an authorization service, and what is its role to the patient, what is its role to the hospital, what's the role to other third parties that maybe want to access the data or contribute to it. Everyone thinks they own everything, and that's not going to work too well. So everyone's almost over responsible now, because we're unclear on what people really are responsible for. We can get clear. We can do it with contracts. We can reflect and support it with an intelligently designed, architected system like HIE of 1. So that's Agency Law 101 for HIE of 1.
So to bring this sort of home and back to HIE of 1 and the technical aspects of this project that we're introducing on the 20th, we now have this opportunity brought to us by these web standards to create a relatively simple piece of technology that is a personal authorization. Freedom boxes that are personal clouds. In the same way, HIE of 1 is a very simple use case to the a very simple example of the complications that Daza just mentioned in the legal sense, because the agent in this case is a piece of technology that is owned by no one but you. just like just like your browser. You know that it's owned by no one but you because you don't have a privacy policy or a terms of use associated with it because you own it. And this actually simplifies also the business. Not only does it simplify the legal complexities, but it simplifies the business complexity because HIE of 1 does not introduce a separate party into what used to be a two-party contract between you and the hospital or you and that Fitbit manufacturer or whatever. And so the trick is, of course, to create a consumer-focused implementation of the UMA authorization server, one that doesn't require professional administrators or with the sophistication of Apple or Google to keep it secure. And this is where we are headed with this project at FutureCommerce. Taza?
Sorry, my mute's on. A lot of people would like to find that button. So, okay, I'll tell you what. Let's wrap it up with that and maybe make an announcement about how people can learn more and what they can expect going forward at the hackathon. So here's one fun thing. If you look at the chat window where I've typed a couple little things in there, you will see that you have a project page now. This is the page that I said that you'd have a few days ago. So here you go. It's futurecommerce.civics.com, which is the event website /projects, which is where everyone that does a project will get a page, and then /projects /HIE-of-1. That's ONE, HIE of 1. So I'll prominently link that from the homepage as I'm proud to say, first project. Thank you for jumping in, you're pioneer, leader, and that's one place people can get more information. In addition to that, Adrian, I was thinking, let's transition as part of closing on more information to your other role, where don't worry, you have very few responsibilities, but basically as agent of the people, helping people that have projects, right? So you've kindly volunteered to basically be a resource person for people. So can I go ahead and put a Google form on the front page so people have questions about projects, specific projects, or starting a project, and that will sort of go to you?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So for more information, talk to Adrian. The doctor is in, and I'm very grateful for your collaboration and for you sharing this innovation. I'll absolutely contribute to your team. I would love that kind of authorization server to be up and running, a simple one that can be used broadly and quickly along the lines of your vision. I would probably look at using it in the field of law as well, where people can more easily deal with their power of attorney and with attorneys, and there's commercial and all sorts of places where an authorization server like that and other parts of people's lives beyond healthcare would be extremely handy. If there's a lightweight one people can understand, set up. So I'm on board. Okay, so there was someone, okay, and then I guess check back to the website when we'll have follow-up call. We'll have follow-up hangouts, and if there's big questions or new topics or anything related to HIE of 1, bring them. And Adrian's been very good about being available. So see if we can address some of it even in the interim before the event starts. And what else? Anything else in closing, Adrian?
No, I think we're good.
We are good. I can confirm that. And so until next time, thanks very much, everybody, and see you online. Bye.